Greetings, dear students. Today we will discuss on the models of communication. This unit is for the benefit of journalism, first year, first semester, mass communication, introduction to mass communication and journalism students. In this unit, we will discuss about the various models which are linked to the mass communication and journalism, especially like SMCR model, that is one important model in the mass communication. Another model is Osgood and Scram model. Another one Loswell model. One more is the Shannon and Weber model. All these models will help the journalist what they have to do in the field. Why we know about the models? Because models are the guidelines to a practitioner. So they do how best because of the guidelines of the models. For these models, various theorists and psychologists, they framed different types of models. So in this unit, we will focusing on 4 major models. Those are SMCR model, that is by BRAOU, David BRAOU is coined this model, and another one is Shannon and Weber model. One more is Loswell model, another one is Osgood and Scram model. All these models will help the practitioner, they do best in the field. Now we will discuss about each model in detail with some examples. In this topic, to discuss on this topic, we have in the studio Miss Himabindu Achanta. She is a faculty from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Loyola Academy, Secunderabad. Welcome, madam.
Hi, sir.
First, we would know about the model. What is model? The definitions of the model. Please explain what is model to our learners.
Yes, sir. So model differs from each field to field, but especially for us communication students. If you want to know how the communication is flowing from one person to another person or from one person to a media, the theorists have very well derived and illustrated through the models, different models, various theorists, right? As you rightly said. A model is the mechanism, perspective of human communication that effectively tells at a glance how it works, right? It is also a graphic representation of what exactly is happening in the reality. A good model comes as close to reality as possible, and it discusses and explains the reality as clearly as possible, because when you're presenting it to the society, you have to illustrate or represent it that clearly with the clarity as a theorist, right? Apart from that, being an abstraction, a model is not the reality. We all also should remember that. It only represents the reality of communication for better understanding of the communication process. Some models could be linear communication, some models could be circular communication, some models could be a two-way communication. It all differs from one theorist to another theorist, how they have designed it. Apart from that, since the communication is a transmission process, the mechanistic interpretation is rather a convenient way of viewing the relationship among the variables of human communication and of explaining how communication flows from one stage to another stage, and it could be infinity.
Yeah, in the communication, very important model, that is a SMCR model, which is framed by David BRAOU in the year 1954. What is SMCR? We need to know about that SMCR. The S means sources, M means message, C means communication channel, R means receiver. So what will be in the each element we'll discuss in this part. I am asking the expert about the what the elements will be covered in the source and explain about the SMCR model in detail.
So SMCR model is one of the first communication models derived by David BRAOU. The communication process comprises a sender or a communicator or a source who has a message that he or she transmits or conveys through some means of communication. It could be direct or it could majorly be through a channel also, to the receiver, who also responds according to his or her understanding of the message to the sender, and that could also be considered as a feedback in general, right? If we look at a glance, the model not only reveals the various elements of human communication, but also their interdependence and the flow of communication from sender to receiver and back to the sender. So here David BRAOU had told that very clearly the source, sender and the receiver should have the same perspective, at least in certain things, majorly if we observe. Like for example, you guys are seeing this video because you belong to mass communication or journalism, and I am teaching you the topic related to mass communication and journalism. If you are a person who belongs to agriculture or biotechnology, there are higher chances that you don't have to listen to this theory, because we are exchanging the same interest of communication. So BRAOU had told that the source, which is considered to be S, message, which is considered to be M, channel as C, the channel of communication, and R to be the receiver. And it also has the process of encoding and decoding. Now for example, if I am giving this lecture to you, or if sir and I are discussing, sir, before asking me a question or to explain something, he is encoding the message in his mind. And when I'm understanding what sir is asking and what I have to tell my students, I am decoding the message to my receivers. You people are also decoding the message. That is what exactly happens between the SMCR through the transmission or flow of message. Apart from that, I was telling about you and I, we all should share a similar interest as the source or the receivers. I am the source of information for this particular topic to you. So I am the sender or the source, right? So we should share similar communication skills, similar attitude, similar knowledge, similar social system, and also the culture, so that we understand very well what I am trying to convey to you and what you are trying to understand with the words or the topic or the message that I am giving to you. Apart from that, apart from these elements, the SMCR also has the sub-elements for the message and the channel. So the sub-elements that come under the message are content, element, treatment, structure, code. Probably now the message how I am giving to you through the PowerPoint presentation. We are having an interaction platform here. We are using a media channel. We are using camera. So this is how we are structuring the content based on how the syllabus has been designed to you by the Ambedkar University, right? So all of this is considered as treatment, structure, code, content, however we are designing them. Apart from that, the channel of communication. So the major thing which is not involved in majority of the communication models are 5 senses that we kept learning since our childhood, right? that is hearing, seeing, touching, smelling and tasting, whatever we can understand. So these are something that were involved in the BRAOU's communication model. For instance, in a communication process, there has to be a sender whose main intention is to communicate a message. To convey his or her thinking process, he has to communicate the message through a particular channel and decide to whom, it could be he or she or anybody, should convey the message. It could be a medium also, you never know. But here we are only using the 5 senses of communication. Remember that it is only through the direct communication, right? The sender also needs to know the receiver's response to the message, whether or not is being received as intended. Then only can the sender proceed further with the next act of communication. So in this interaction, there is an interdependence of relationship among the various variables of communication, especially the human communication, right? And lastly, the mechanistic perspective of communication emphasizes the physical element of communication majorly, because we discussed about the 5 senses of communication, which are also the channel and also the transmission and reception of messages flowing in conveyor belt fashion based on the elements and the sub-elements, including the encoding and decoding of the message the David BRAOU had designed as one of the models of communication.
Well said, ma'am. In the SMCR model, this is another, it explains the process of communication in general, because we have a source, message, channel and receiver. Ultimately, this is a circle, like a process of communication. The source is saying something, it is reaching through channels and it is reaching to the receiver. So it is a circular. There is another important model, that is a Shannon and Weaver model. That is we generally call it as a mathematical model. This model is developed by Shannon, the full name is Claude E. Shannon, and another person, that is Warren Weaver, in the year 1949. These were explained the one of the new kind of communication model in the communication what we are now enjoying. So as per the Shannon and Weaver model, we now practicing many communication models, many communication practices in this present day world. Please, ma'am, explain about Shannon and Weaver model in detail with some examples.
Shannon and Weaver model of communication is definitely one of my favorite models of communication, because he's someone who had introduced the noise and communication which we get to hear, see every day, right? So let us get to know about this model of communication. The information model designed by Claude E. Shannon and Warren Weaver, the Mathematical Theory of Communication, University of Illinois Press, Urban 3, 1949, which had come later. And if I am not wrong, I think this communication model is considered as the granddaddy of communication, and Shannon and Weaver emphasized that the word information in this theory is used as a special sense, and that must not be confused with the word meaning. Information referred to any bit of data can also be considered in this model of communication. They introduced the idea of entropy and redundancy. What do you think is entropy? Entropy refers to uncertainty and redundancy is referred to certainty. And the goal of communication is to reduce entropy, because whenever we are communicating with person, we want certainty. Like for example, if I'm giving you this class, of course when we are dealing with unit 3, you want to deal only with models of communication, because something that is supposed to be relevant, certain and I cannot teach television broadcasting in this unit because that is uncertain, right? That is what exactly entropy and redundancy means. Finally, noise increases entropy. For example, if there is any technical issue in this room, that can be considered as noise. If there is any glitch, you will not be able to receive the entire topic that Sunil sir and I are trying to explain you, right? And if there is any technical glitch, and that is considered as noise in the communication. So we always have to reduce the entropy of the message whenever we are trying to communicate with any individual to be meaningful and informative at utmost. Apart from that, let us look at the model of communication right now. Here, if you see, there is information source, transmitter, receiver and destination. In between you can see a square box, right? And there is a noise source. Like for example, we are the source of information for this particular topic to you guys. And the transmitter or the signal could be wherever you are trying to watch this video. And what happens? There is some Wi-Fi issue or network issue. The unit what you are trying to watch now is paused. You are unable to get the other 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes of the video that is left. And you are the receiver who is receiving the message, who is our destination as the receivers. And because of the Wi-Fi connection, out of 30 minutes or 40 minutes of unit, you are able to learn only 20 minutes. And that is considered as the noise. Another example in this video. The source or the channel is trying to send a message to you because television channel is sending a message to you through your transmitter, and it is rainy season. Because of the rains or the weather, you have some signal issue and you will get to see a notice due to heavy rains the transmitter or the signal is gone. And that particular issue where you get that weather report or the glitch or the entire disappear of the message that you're getting through your channel is the issue with the transmitter and the signals. And now you're unable to, now the content is missed and the rains are stopped, you got your signal back and you're continuing the news. So you have lost that few minutes of news, whatever your channel has sent to you. Now as the receiver, you did not receive the 100% of message, and whatever content you have missed because of the network issue or because of the signals that are being cut or gone due to the weather, that is considered as the noise in communication. Even though the sender is giving you 100% of information, as the receiver, you are not getting the entire information. You are lost with some sort of information. That is called as entropy and redundancies. Apart from understanding the entire model or the graphic part of the communication, in the Shannon and Weaver model of communication, the information source produces a message in any system of significance, spoken or written words or music or pictures, etc. The transmitter chooses signals to represent the message suitable for the channel to be used. Another example I can give. You are reading a newspaper and there is a piece of the newspaper is crushed or there is a water drop on that. So you have 100 words here and you have missed the 87th word, for example, because of the rainwater spilling on the newspaper. Now whatever you have missed, that can also be considered as the noise in communication, but in the form of a printed material or the written word. So we have discussed. Another example I can give you. You're talking to your friend on a cell phone and because of the network issue or Wi-Fi disconnection, you have lost a certain words, and that can be considered as the noise in the air because of the network issue, and you're unable to understand what your friend is communicating to you through a phone call, right? If you take a conversation that way. Apart from that, the transmitter is the voice mechanism or vocal system which produces the signal. It could be the spoken word as we discussed. The channel is air and the signal is the varying pressure passing from the vocal system of one person to another. The transmitter encodes the message and the receiver has to decode the message, right? Between the transmitted signal and the received signal is the noise source which is likely to interfere with the perception of the message. That is where we don't get what the sender is trying to tell us to the destination, whatever or whoever they are trying to communicate. The received signal is what the receiver receives, and what he or she makes of it is the message. And the destination is the person or the thing for whom it is intended to you. Apart from the person, it could be the message that you are trying to gain through a news channel, website, or anywhere based on the device that the person is trying to send the information to. So this is all about the channel and the viewer model of communication.
Learned about the two major models, that is one is a SMCR model, another one is a Shannon and Weaver model. There is a one element which is a noise is included in the Shannon and Weaver model compared with the SMCR model. Another major important model in the communication, that is a Laswell model of communication. Here this model is developed by the Harold D. Laswell in the year 1948. Please ma'am explain about the Laswell model of communication to our learners.
Yes, sir. So Laswell model of communication is considered as one of the linear models of communication. This process of communication can be best summed up by the Professor Harold D. Laswell, who says what, in which channel, to whom, and with what effect is exactly. So this is like the Laswell formula. Who says what, in which channel, to whom, and with what effect. So here Laswell has says that the impact or the effect of the message is something that should be very important when it comes to models of communication or any communication platform in general, right? To break the question into different components of the process, who refers to the communicator, says what refers to the message, in what channel refers to the medium of communication, and to whom it refers to the receiver who is receiving the information, and with what effect. Effect means feedback from the receiver, right? So here Laswell is giving a lot of importance to the feedback, which was not that greatly observed in other models of communication, right? A speciality of this model, as we discussed over the earlier Shannon and Weaver model of communication, is that the effect of the message has been added when compared to other models of communication. Like for example, here who is Sunil sir and I. We are the sender and the sources of information. Says what? What are we saying? Unit 3, Laswell model of communication. So this is what exactly is what we are trying to convey you. So we as the assistant professors or the professors are saying the message that is based on what has to be conveyed to you. In which channel? Through any online platform or through the platform or visual and audio material that we are trying to give you. So this is what exactly the channel or the medium of communication here is. And to whom? To our beloved students. You are the receivers of this content what we are trying to give you. That is what we are trying to tell you, right? So you are the receivers. And with what effect? The feedback. The feedback is what you are trying to write in the notes or in the exam. That is what the feedback that we are getting based on this topic, or the comments that you give to this video. So this is what exactly who the communicator is saying what, the message through what channel, it could be any medium that you're trying to communicate, and to whom, who are the receivers, and with what effect. That is based on the feedback entirely. So this is what exactly the Laswell Herald had brilliantly given the feedback as a major important factor of communication, because if you're directly communicating the information, you don't know, are they understanding, are they listening, do they have any questions, queries, doubts or anything. So that is always important to know.
We have learned one more new word in this model, in the Laswell model. We have learned one more new word, that is effect or feedback, from the Laswell model of communication. Here is another important mass communication model, that is Osgood and Scram model, which is developed in the year 1954 by C.E. Osgood and Wilbur Scram. So what they are saying, we will learn from the Miss Himabindu in detail. Please, ma'am, explain about the Osgood and Scram model to our learners.
Definitely, sir. So Osgood and Schramm model, this particular model is derived by Osgood and Wilbur Schramm. If the Shannon and Weaver model of communication or the Laswell model of communication could be considered as linear, we may say that Osgood and Schramm model is highly circular model of communication, because it is not just linear. It is in the form of a circle, because here also you can see the sender, receiver, interpreter, encoding, decoding, all of that can be understood precisely, right? Another difference lies in that whereas Shannon's interest is primarily directed to the channels mediating between the senders and the receivers, Schramm and Osgood devote their discussion to the behavior of the main actors in the communication process. And who are the main actors? The sender and the receiver, and whoever is interpreting the message, right? Even so, there are important similarities between the two approaches. So here if you see the model, the graphic or the illustration in general, you see encoder who's sending the message to the decoder. That is, source or the sender is sending the message to the receiver, and the decoder is acting as an interpreter and sending it to the encoder, and again interpreting the message and again sending it to the encoder. Encoder sends the message again to the decoder, again interpreting, again encoding, right? So here you are trying to understand very well what your sender is trying to communicate, what your receiver is trying to receive through the message. So the words encoding and decoding and interpreting are playing huge role, right? So here we are also playing the roles of the encoder and the decoder with the message, and also interpreting and trying to understand what is being conveyed. That is what exactly the circular form of communication. So here information, feedback, everything is given a lot of priority. Apart from that, Shannon and Weaver makes a distinction between the source and transmitter and between receiver and destination, right? Apart from that, the interpreter could also be the transmitter, that is helping you to send the or the share the message. In other words, two functions are fulfilled at the transmitting end. In the Schramm-Osgood case, almost the same functions are performed, even if they do not talk about transmitters and receivers specifically, right? They describe the acting parties as equals performing identical functions, namely encoding, decoding and interpreting. If you see the model, there is no transmitter. But if you see the elements, you can see the sender, receiver and interpreting the message, but in the form of encoding, decoding and interpreting the message. So do not think it is only considered to be in the technical words, but not with the channel or the medium of communication or who is sending what in general.
This is a circular model. So sender is sending some messages to the receiver. Again, we are getting the message from the receiver and given back to the sender. So this is a process of a like in general we call it is a two-way communication process. So it is a circulating. Sender is sending message and receiver is receiving the message. Again, he is sending the message to the sender. So this is a circulation. So far we have discussed about the four major communication models in this discussion. There is another important topic, that is importance. What is the importance of the models in the practice of mass communication? Please explain, madam, about the importance of the models in the practice of mass communication for our students.
Yes, the importance of model in the practice of mass communication, especially the basic process of human communication applies to the mass communication process as well. But when compared to the process of communication, when we are applying to mass communication, it is a bit complex because the latter elements that are been added to it, and the message keeps on multiplying again and again, and the feedback is comparatively less, which is why it is considered to be a bit complex. Apart from that, for instance, majorly when we are trying to discuss about the importance of model in the practice of mass communication, to be successful, communication should always be a two-way process. Sending of the message to an audience through any particular channel. Reply or reaction to the message is also very important, right? The two-way process presupposes a communicator, a message, a channel and also a receiver. To put it in the language of researchers, the communicator is the encoder, the message is the symbol, and the channel is one of the media or medium, and the receiver is the decoder who is receiving the information. So here if you see sender, message, receiver and response. So this is how exactly the communication is supposed to flow in a symmetric, which is also called in a simpler way, the two-way communication process.
Thank you very much, Ms. Himabindu. So far we have learnt the important models in the communication like SMCR model and Shannon and Weber model. Another one is Laswell model, Osgood and Wilbur-Scram model, and the importance of models in the practice of communication. So far, dear learners, you have understood a detailed with more examples we have covered in this lesson. Thank you very much for the detailed explanation about this unit. Thank you very much, Ms. Himabindu.